Welcome to my channel. And today is another astrological video. But this one is extra special because we are doing a reading of the stars. We're looking at how they align to help boost your mood. This is like an advice column from the cosmos itself. So make sure you pay attention because it might be able to answer questions or concerns that you have right now. Okay, so this reading is based off of the fact that Mercury is now direct. If you don't know what that means, basically Mercury is a planet in our solar system that goes around the sun opposite to the way that the Earth rotates. So every 6 months or so, depending on how fast it's going, it appears to slow down and go backwards. This is not actually happening. It's just an illusion from our perspective here on Earth. But since ancient times, we have associated this retrograde motion of Mercury with chaos and confusion in communication, travel and technology. And then when Mercury turns direct, we associate it with renewed clarity, productivity and progress. But if we look into the scientific research, what does it really say about Mercury? For starters, there is no scientific evidence to support the idea that Mercury has any effect on our emotions or behavior. Now let me be clear. I am not saying that astrology is wrong, or that these symbols are fake, or don't hold meaning. What I am saying is that we need to find a way to study them scientifically, if we want to understand how they affect our everyday lives. So what did the research say? Well, I looked all over the place, and while there wasn't much on Mercury specifically, there was some interesting stuff on how other celestial events can impact our brains and behaviors. So this video will cover the main findings of that research and how it applies to your emotional health today. The first thing I wanted to see is if there was any truth to the statement that the moon affects our emotions. Like, I've heard people say that the full moon makes them feel crazy, or during a new moon, they feel totally drained of energy. There are even claims out there that mental illness symptoms worsen during certain phases of the moon. So I found this study by NASA, which analyzed psychiatric admissions over a 10-year period, and concluded that there was no significant link between lunar cycles and mental health crises. They also found no association between the lunar cycle and suicide rates. Now keep in mind, this was just one study and more research is needed. But so far it doesn't look like the moon landing is affecting our emotions in any major way. Next, I wanted to explore the idea that planetary alignments could have some kind of electromagnetic effect on our bodies because after all, we are mostly made up of water, which is a great conductor of electricity. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any solid evidence to support this theory, but I did find some interesting research on something called geomagnetic activity, which basically refers to the strength and variability of Earth's magnetic field. This is important because our brain's electrical activity is measured in millivolts, which is extremely weak compared to the Earth's magnetic field, which is measured in Gauss. One study found that when there are increased geomagnetic disturbances caused by solar winds, there is an increase in things like heart attacks, strokes, and psychiatric hospital admissions. However, overall, the effect is pretty small. The authors of the study suggested that future research should look into whether or not those with pacemakers or other implanted medical devices are affected more strongly. But it does seem like our bodies might be picking up on some of these astronomical happenings, maybe through the vestibular system in our inner ear, which is responsible for our sense of balance and spatial orientation. I found this study, which used MRI scans to show that the vestibular system responds to both visual and magnetic cues. And this is super interesting because it could mean that we are subconsciously using the Earth as magnetic field as a navigational tool. The authors suggest that this might be related to our evolutionary history and the fact that our ancestors relied on the stars for navigation when they were migrating across continents. So while it might not be conscious, it is possible that your body is responding to changes in the Earth's magnetic field and the movement of celestial bodies. Okay, so now let's get into how these cosmic events actually affect us emotionally. According to Carl Jung, who was a Swiss psychiatrist, and one of the founders of analytical psychology. The planets represent archetypes in our collective unconscious. Archetypes are universal patterns of behavior and images that are shared by all cultures and are present from birth. Jung believed that these archetypes influence our thoughts, feelings, and actions without our conscious awareness. He assigned each planet a different archetype and believed that their positions in the zodiac at the time of a significant event could reveal important information about that event. For example, the position of Mars at the time of a sporting event might indicate the level of aggression or competition involved. Now I want to make it clear that again, this is not based on scientific evidence, but Jungian psychology has had a huge impact on the field of astrology. And it's worth exploring these ideas to see if there's anything to them. According to Jung, the moon represents our emotions and instincts. When the moon is full, it's believed to be at its highest point of power, which could explain why some people feel more emotional or restless during this time. Conversely, during a new moon, the moon is invisible, and this is seen as a time for introspection and rest. Next, we have Mercury, which rules over communication and transportation. As I mentioned earlier, Mercury has recently turned direct. And according to astrology, this is a time for renewed clarity and productivity. It's believed that Mercury retrograde creates confusion and delays in communication and travel. But once it's direct, things start to move forward again. This could explain why you may feel more motivated and focused now that Mercury is direct. Another planet that's worth mentioning is Jupiter, which rules over abundance and expansion. Jupiter is currently in a phase of retrograde motion, which means that it appears to be moving backwards in the sky. Astrologers believe that this retrograde motion brings challenges and setbacks related to abundance and expansion, such as financial losses or missed opportunities. However, it can also be a time for reflection and re-evaluation of one's goals and priorities. Okay, so now let's put all of this together and apply it to your emotional health today. First, take a moment to acknowledge any emotions that you may be feeling. Are you feeling anxious, depressed, angry, or hopeless? Maybe you're feeling excited, motivated, and optimistic. Whatever emotions you're feeling, know that they are valid and important. Next, try to identify any patterns in your emotions. Do you feel more emotional or energetic during certain times of the month or year? Have you noticed any changes in your emotions since Mercury turned direct? These patterns can give you clues as to what might be affecting your emotional health. Finally, take action to improve your emotional well-being. This could involve setting healthy boundaries, engaging in self-care activities, seeking professional help, or simply being more mindful of your thoughts and emotions. Remember that you have the power to shape your emotional well-being, and there are resources available to help you on your journey. And while there might not be a direct link between the stars and our emotions, there could be a connection through the Earth's magnetic field and our own bioelectrical activity. Either way, it's important to stay curious and keep learning about the world around us. Who knows? Maybe one day we will discover a deeper connection between the cosmos and ourselves. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and comment below if you have any questions or thoughts. I appreciate you tuning in and sending good vibes. I hope you have a great day. Bye.